Welcome to Home Means, where the heart of Nevada comes alive. I'm your host, Heather Brown, and this place is where we uncover the real stories behind the people who make our state extraordinary, from unforgettable adventures to everyday moments that shape us. This podcast is all about the voices, the faces, and the experiences that make Nevada truly unique. Let's dive in and get to the heart of what home means. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Home Means. Today I am honored to have Bernhard here with me. Bo, we have known each other for a long time.
I feel like we grew up together, even though we didn't grow up together, because I feel like that happens a lot with those of us who grew up here. We had very similar environments growing up. We kind of know each other from growing up and chasing probably the same lizards around the same deserts many years ago. Yes.
It was definitely a different city back then.
It was.
But your family has been here. You're a fifth generation.
I am. I'm
which
weird.
is pretty rare.
I'm weird. Yes.
it's so rare.
We go way back. Yeah. I grew up here. My parents grew up here. My parents fell in love at Red Rock Elementary School, and then went to Western, which is a great institution. I hear it's actually an outstanding educational institution. My grandparents went to Vegas High School because that was the only one you could go to, and yeah, we've been out here ever since.
So you grew up as the city grew up.
I did. Yeah.
And when did this become home for you? When did you recognize that?
I don't know if you ever feel this way. Tell me if you feel this way. There were times growing up where I felt like I grew up in a small town. I really felt like this was not a big place or a place that was well known beyond the part that was well known. And then I went away, as you did, went to college for 4 years, lived overseas for a few years, and I came back to this metropolis, and I was like, wow, it feels like a different place. And I had to kind of get used to that cadence. But there are times where I long for the smaller town feel that we once had. So I would say it felt like home when it was small.
Mm-hmm.
And now it feels like home now that it's this global city that I barely recognize sometimes.
What do you think has changed most, and what do you think has kind of stayed true to its core?
I think the global recognition has changed the most, right?
That's
the
fair.
fact that we now are a place that broadcasts out to a planet, that exports our shiny buildings to 6 continents. Detroit was a city that made shiny cars. We make shiny buildings. And I was in Thailand a couple of weeks ago, and they were very open to this idea that we could bring one of those Las Vegas style mega resort shiny buildings here to our backyard. And that just wasn't the case. I lived in Boston after school, and Boston was a place that really looked down its nose at us, baby cities. There was a city that had been around for 300 years and had very specific rules and families that ran the place. And Las Vegas just never kind of had that. I always liked that about Las Vegas. And I like that we've always been very open to new smart people coming in from outside because of that, because it would just be ridiculous for us to insist on, rules that go back hundreds of years, because we just don't have those here.
I think it's interesting that you say about that, global view and how people think about us. I mean, you've been to over 50 countries. I've been blessed to travel. What do you think maybe the international community misunderstands about us because we are so much about the Strip externally?
Yeah, I think it has to be the part where even if they've been here, they don't recognize that there's a massive community that basically now is kind of wall-to-wall carpeting, right? We're completely surrounded by a mountain range, right? And the people go up to the walls that are the mountains all around. But those mountains are a good illustration of this, right? The fact that the world's greatest rock climbers now live here because it's both an amazing rock climbing place, also super accessible airport that can get you anywhere and quickly. And so as a result, it's got a dynamic and a lifestyle that you really can't pull off just about anywhere else. And I certainly think that my friends in Germany, where I lived for a while, or in Spain, where I lived for a while, they just have no idea that that's here.
I mean, the 8th busiest airport in the United States.
Yeah.
And we only have a city of 2.4 million.
That's
That
right.
is not a feat that you see.
That's
and so
right. Yeah, the math is crazy. Yeah.
I feel like we can only pull off certain things. Like, I feel like at our core, we are so innovative.
Yeah.
And, you do a lot of work with UNLV, obviously.
Yeah.
Where do you think UNLV and really Southern Nevada can be like a leader in innovation culture?
I love that you pointed out the innovation piece. And earlier in our conversations, you and I talk about this a lot. When you think about the Strip, that is the most visited single site on Earth, right? There are other cities that get more tourists, but that site itself is amazing because it's an entirely human dreamed concoction, if you can put it that way, right? Everything that draws the 40 million people a year to that site was hatched in the brain of a Las Vegan, or at least somebody who worked
Yeah.
here, right? And as a result, I don't think we get the credit we deserve for being a place that dreams up really cool stuff and then often executes it. Sometimes we don't. I remember growing up, we had somebody was going to launch a hotel that was in the shape of the moon, and that, of course, never happened. But now we have a sphere, right? And in a way that was executed, and
Yeah.
in a way that I was actually in Germany the day they turned that thing on. And it was the number one story in Germany that day, was they lit
Amazing.
up this amazing facade that is spherical. And now we have one of these on planet Earth, right? So I think it's always been a place that has had that kind of nuclear energy of innovation. What hopefully a university helps you do is kind of harness that, right? And find that and you and I both share this love for these brilliant 18-year-olds that come to us from Western high school and have these amazing ideas. And how can you sort of harness that and say, okay, here's a class that you can take, and the final exam is invent something, and maybe, just maybe, you can launch your own business, right, someday. And so I think universities increasingly are being asked to do that. I think it's good that we're asking
Yeah.
that and asking more of our universities. And they really are places where you find out where you are. At least I did when I was in college. You sort of figure out, okay, this is who I am, this is what I can be. And then hopefully it channels you and harnesses that information and that spirit in a way that lets you grow.
I think, we UNLV, we're
Yeah.
very blessed. We were the first R1 in the state.
Yeah.
That is for such a young school,
Neat.
such a feat.
Such
And
a
we've
feat.
kept it. And,
Yeah.
we just had our accreditation with no
Like
notes.
top scores.
No notes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
The research that's coming out of here, can you give an example of how that research has really changed?
Yeah.
This, we know that what happens here stays here now, right?
Right.
And then we changed it to what happens here only happens here,
Right.
because we understand that. But can you give some
Yeah,
examples?
I love these stories. I have 20 UNLV degrees in my family. I have certainly nothing against the UNLV of a generation ago. But it's kind of like if you don't go to the Strip for a few years, you show up and there are brand new buildings, right? If you haven't been to UNLV in a few years, there are amazing new accomplishments. So researchers like Jeremy Cho, I think came to us from Princeton. We used to hire the likes of me 25 years ago, right? Now we're hiring like the superstars from the Princeton labs.
Didn't
And
you go to Harvard?
I did, but I am nowhere near a Jeremy Cho. Here's what Jeremy Cho does. He lands here in Las Vegas and probably flew over Lake Mead and its bathtub ring. And he said, hey, I have an idea. What if we could, in fact, get at all of the water that's in the air and find a way to bring that to use in our household? And so Waver, which exists here in Blackfire, the building we're in right now, is an invention that basically, I like to think of it like we used to have in Las Vegas, the big air conditioning units on the roof, right? And you just drive by and it was like seas of the exact same roof with the exact same air conditioning in the sea of suburbia, right? Imagine having a different machine on your roof that can extract the air literally from the 30 feet above your house that provides you with enough water to use throughout your house for the whole year. That's what's coming out of UNLV. We're steps away from a hotel room of the future where UNLV kids dreamed up the world's first zero water bed sheet. This bed sheet goes into a machine
Wild.
that is, it used to be you threw the bed sheets from the hotel rooms down into a big laundry machine and it filled with water and it spun around. Now you put it into one of their machines and it melts it at really high temperatures, which of course sterilizes it, breaks it down into little white pellets. Those pellets then get pressed into a brand new bed sheet, completely clean, zero water. That's the kind of thing that Las Vegas kids think of because they grew up chasing lizards in the desert. So of course you start to think about these things and these problems and these challenges, and that's where the innovation really takes off.
Well, and I love that you brought up Waver, because I've actually recently spoke to them, and because of their technology that spun out of UNLV, we were actually able to get a company to commit to move here who needs water, and they trust this company's vision and long-term, viability to provide it for them.
Wow, that's great.
And
right?
so we're talking hundreds of jobs.
I mean,
And so the economic impact that we're seeing
I love
Like
that
I
story.
literally have
I
goosebumps
love that
saying it
story.
out
Yeah,
loud.
yeah. And that's what we do. That's how we roll. That is literally the kind of almost exponential growth that we've seen in Las Vegas. It kind of stacks on itself in a way that you just articulated so well. So yeah, I love stories like that.
I kind of just gave a good example, but maybe you have another one. But I'm curious how you think, the role of education and research will play in the economic outputs for Las Vegas.
Yeah,
Because we have to get beyond the glitz and glamour of the strip.
that's
And
right.
a lot of people just think of us
That's
as the strip. But we know from the .com to the economic downturn to
yeah,
COVID, we saw 3 times in 2 decades where we were devastated.
devastated.
And
Yeah,
so diversifying our economy is no longer this like sexy term.
yeah,
It's now something that we're actually doing. And how do you think our
yeah.
research and
Well,
innovation is going to bring that?
you're being modest here. You've played a huge role in bringing a tech community here that didn't really exist for us growing up. If you wanted to go into the tech community, you kind of had to go into the slot machine tech community. Nothing against that.
Yeah.
Those are global
Yep.
powerhouses that sell technology in 300 jurisdictions around the world, but we needed more of it. And the diversification story, I think, is one that's already starting to happen in ways that are, as often happens, quiet and then really fast, right? But also ones that we need to invest in moving forward. So I think of the ways that you mentioned how, COVID and the Great Recession, I mean, we just got devastated during these downturns. And that's why you need a more robust economy that includes things that don't get devastated, don't get sick, during these downturns. So one of the ways I've started to think about it, it's a little bit like follow me on this, the old bar game of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon and
Sure.
how far away
Yeah.
you get away from Kevin Bacon and finding actors connected to one another. The Raiders were kind of 1 degree of Kevin Bacon or 1 degree of economic diversification away from the strip. But they weren't far enough because during COVID, we opened that glorious stadium and it was empty because you couldn't go to games. That was also something that was diversified. It was the NFL, a mega company, a mega brand, and the Raiders that came here helped us diversify, but it wasn't diversified enough. But now we're seeing things diversify from those sports teams like sports medicine, right? And the way that, for example, UFC, we toured with a group of UNLV students last week, and their sports medicine facility is the best on the planet, in part because they have the best data on the planet. So the Las Vegas A's, who are coming here, are famous for being the Moneyball team, right?
Yep.
They have amazing data on their 25 players. They don't have any data on the New York Yankees. UFC has data on all of the athletes. And so their great leaps forward in sports medicine have been through the roof. So that's like 2 degrees. And then 3 degrees is sports medicine tech that has emerged from there. And once you get to sports medicine tech, actually during COVID, we were all buying Apple Watches to monitor, right? You've effectively diversified away from your strengths, but nevertheless building on your strengths in a way that I feel like is kind of uniquely Las Vegas and uniquely now. So we're already starting to see it, and I think those kinds of sectors are just going to continue to grow and diversify.
I think you're right because we are no longer the entertainment capital. We are the sports
Yes.
and entertainment capital.
For sure.
And we took that title and ran with it.
We did. I mean, so I used to ask people this. So if you had to name what is the intellectual capital of the global sports world, people are like, I don't know, maybe New York or London, and that could be true. It was there for the taking, and I think we're taking it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a business capital. It's also an ideas capital. It has to also be an intellectual capital in order for us to continue to thrive, right? We can't just be the place that has the show. We have to be the place that invents and creates the show. I think the Golden Knights did a wonderful job of this, right?
Yes.
Game Day is an incredible production that at first the other teams mocked. Then they all fired their Game Day folks. I actually think the Las Vegas Aces, this is a little my controversial take of the day, I think they do a better job of Game Day than even the Golden Knights, in part because the players themselves are kind of the stars of the show that you see in between plays, and they get to show their charisma and their connection. And so I think Aces games are the most fun games in town right now. But nevertheless, unquestionably Las Vegas, right? Undeniably, unabashedly, we are about entertainment and sports coming together. and in a way that really intersects with the other sector that's huge here, which is tourism. You go to a Golden Knights game and you're seated next to an Edmonton Oilers fan. You're like, hey, how are you enjoying your trip, right? And in a way that living in Boston, if there was a Yankees fan next to you as a Boston Red Sox fan, you did not say, hey, how's your trip to Boston, right? You were probably fighting. You were probably using words we shouldn't use on a podcast like this one. And it just was a contentiousness. Las Vegans are already so welcoming of folks coming in that I think it creates a different vibe at those games.
I mean, personally, I look at them and I say economic dollars.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for your money.
Thank you. Yes.
I don't pay taxes.
Yes,
Keep on
that's
doing
right.
it.
Your dollar woke up in St. Louis as a St. Louis Blues fan this morning in a St. Louis bank, and it's going to bed in a Las Vegas bank tonight. Thank you very much.
And I hope you have a great time.
And enjoy and leave lots of money.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. And maybe this is our, hospitality background.
Yeah.
Because at its core, I mean, I still believe that when tech companies are moving here, and I say this a lot, bring your go-to-market positions, bring your sales teams, because at our core, we are hospitality, and nobody does it better.
Yeah. A really good illustration of that was our late friend Tony Hsieh, who moved Zappos here in large part because of the hospitality intelligence of people who could, in Zappos' case, answer the phones, work 24 hours a day, right? Because we're used to that as well, and be really, really socially intelligent you could throw anything at a Zappos call center. I mean, famously, they would order you a pizza. You could call them and say, you didn't have to talk about your Converse shoes that I'm wearing today. You could say, I'd like a pizza. Okay, well, where are you, sir? I'm in San Francisco. Okay, great. Let's see if we can't find a Domino's nearby, right? Famously, they were brilliant at hospitality, and Tony Hsieh saw that in relocating from Silicon Valley to Las Vegas because he saw the hospitality intelligence.
That's amazing. It's amazing that it into a shoe company, right? Like, and obviously the genius of Tony Hsieh, but just it permeates in so many different ways. And I think this is why it's helping us diversify, is because we are innovative in how we use hospitality in all these new ways.
That's right. I think we could call it hospitality intelligence in the same way there's a social intelligence and an emotional intelligence, right? Hospitality intelligence is something, you put it really well just then, you can almost infuse it into any industry. And it feels like, I don't know what you think about this, but it feels like one of the last things that's going to be AI'd away, hospitality intelligence, because it's hard, right? And so, we can get better at it through AI, but I also think that there's something in the human hospitality intelligence that's very real.
Well, I saw a speaker talk about this, and he said that now human currency is you have to be a member. You have to be, somebody who has status with them in order. So now that human to human contact is commodified. It's a status now.
Yeah.
And so I actually think AI it'll help with stuff, but I hate talking to an automated machine.
Yeah, and think about who's really, so often we lament our lack of educational performance as Las Vegans, right? When you look at our high school graduation rates, our university graduation rates, and that's an important way to measure intelligence. If we had a similarly hard-wired, hard data metric, though, of social intelligence, which is a little tougher to measure, I bet we'd be way higher than New York City and San Francisco and Austin. As smart as those cities are, who's smarter than the person who exercises the social intelligence muscle because she's worked at the front desk for 10 years? When the kind of humanity that rolls through that front, I mean, anything could show up.
Every corner of the world shows up.
Every corner of the world, every crisis, right? And so I don't know that there's anybody exercising that muscle more than a Las Vegan in our hospitality industry. And that actually is valuable to companies who recognize that in 2025, you need that, right? Maybe now more than ever.
If we were going to take industry, casino, but industry in general, government, university, how would you take all of those community components and build that bridge that shows that Nevada is just moving forward?
Yeah, I think, who's really good at this? I know it's somebody you and I both admire, is Jan Jones Blackhurst. Right?
Love her.
So she's my mayor, my hero, and she really showed a lot of us sort of a new way to be a Las Vegas leader when she became, I don't think we can overstate this. When she was that two-term mayor in the 90s, it was when we were becoming a global city, and we had this really smart person, graduated from Stanford, but more importantly, like just brilliant business intelligence as well. And she was the best and is the best of anybody I've ever seen at linking Las Vegas's business with community, at going to places to go into the casino world, where she would go into jurisdictions that were not, they were NIMBYing, right? They were like, not in my backyard, right? Are you bringing a casino? And then she would go and speak to the folks who had the pitchforks out, and they would leave saying, I didn't know that that was Las Vegas. I liked her. And so we call that, of course, government relations and community relations, right? But that walls outward, it's not just being really good at your walls inward business model. You need that, obviously. You also, I think, especially in 2025, need to be good at the walls outward thing. And once more, who's better at that than people who are really good at hospitality intelligence, social intelligence? Like Jan, who went into the whole planet's worth of communities saying, this is what Las Vegas is, and it's okay to import this into Singapore, into South Africa, and all points in the global in-between.
And we were unapologetically us.
I love that part too, right? I mean, there was a time, I remember when I first came to UNLV, there was a real concern that we needed to be really careful not to affiliate with who we were, right? We were trying to build a respectable university and trying to become a research university, and there were concerns, understandably, that maybe if we got too closely affiliated with who we were, that the rest of the world wouldn't like us. It sure doesn't feel that way today, though. And I love that that's the case.
I love that too. And honestly, that's why I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Is because
that's why
I love that you wore that. I appreciate you.
I'm so excited to wear this. Yeah.
I want us to own this.
Yeah.
I want us to be proud of this community. You and I have an affinity for this state and this community that words cannot really describe. But I think it's so important that everybody realizes how special this place is.
And how do we? I'm going to ask the questions of you now. You and I both left and came back.
Yeah.
How do we make sure that our best and brightest have that pride and stay here, or if they do go away, that they come back? That's something that I'm always trying to think about at UNLV. I'm trying to figure out how to make sure the Heather Browns come back if they've left. And making sure that we keep our best and brightest here. That's something we've got to do in order to grow.
You know, the politician in me says I don't want them to leave because I don't want taxpayer subsidized education to leave the state and we never reap the benefits.
That's right.
But Heather Brown, the person, the one who traveled the world, I've been to 84 countries and lived in all these states. And it was so important for me to get that life experience and then still have this connection back home and want to bring that passion back because I see nothing but potential here. Yeah. We are the most special place in the world. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that. I genuinely believe that just being who we are, being unapologetically amazing and this tight-knit community. I mean, you hear me say it all the time, but there's 2.4 million people and I know all 50 of them.
Right. I love that line.
And it's so true.
And we brought you back. We got her back. We got the great Heather Brown back. And I think for us, right, who came back, it's a chance to build, right? You can build here, and in a way that, once more, older European cities are fantastic. You and I have had this conversation. We're in love with those places. But good luck inventing something new there, right? Or having something where, you're the leader in this space, and it's not something that was claimed 300 years ago. You get that sensibility from a lot of older places. Here it's like, gosh, claim that. That's a good one. Yeah, run with that here in Las Vegas because nobody's really gone down that path and you get to build it. That was really enticing for me.
No, I think is the perfect summary because we are innovative at its core. Yeah. We should not exist as a community and we figured it out. 100 years ago. We said we are a thriving metropolis that will survive, and we pivoted and we got creative.
Reinvented.
And I love that. I mean, I literally have goosebumps because I love that about us. And I see it today. And you said it best, like, there's nothing but building blocks here. And people aren't status quo. They're not stuck in the
Yeah.
past. If
Yeah.
you have a good idea and they respect you and you show up and you are responsible and, a good community advocate,
Yeah.
they're going to believe you and they're going to champion you.
Yeah.
And it feels so good to be part of that. And I really hope that, as we continue to grow and diversify and we invite these new people to come in and be a part of our ecosystem, that we don't lose that
That we
part of
keep that
us.
spirit. Yeah. Yeah. Mine was a family that's been here forever, but everybody's like, well, you must have invested in real estate. I'm sure you guys are. It's like, yeah, no, we weren't that. We were all, public school teachers and things to be very proud of, but nobody invested in real estate. But what they did have was the crazy notion that they should move to a city in that time, Las Vegas, before they had invented air conditioning, right? Like those were bold pioneers, right? The folks who arrived here and were like, yes, I'm going to go there. And yes, it's 115 in the summer, but and they don't have air conditioning yet, but we're going to figure it out. And to hear, again, my grandmother telling stories of the fan. And of course, if you got the big block of ice downtown, you put it next to the fan, then you created your own air conditioning in this, right? And so, yeah, that innovative spirit, if we ever lose that, we're done, right? I remember growing up, the big trip for us at least was to go to Southern California, go to Magic Mountain, where every summer it seemed like they had a brand new roller coaster. And then as a grown up, you realize, oh, they have to have a new roller coaster at the amusement park every summer. Otherwise, the product stagnates and people stop going to Magic Mountain. Las Vegas is kind of like that, to your point. The moment we stop inventing a new roller coaster or innovating is the moment that our little amusement park becomes stagnant, right? And we can't have that kind of status quo, at least not here.
And I see it in the community too.
Yeah.
I see us wanting to be, obviously building more things for families and parks and entertainment spaces. And Summerlin is a really great example.
Yeah.
Green Valley is another one. I know they're building something in North Las Vegas right now.
Yeah.
We have these pockets where
Yeah.
families feel like they can have this like totally normal shopping, baseball,
Right.
where do you think the future of these communities will be to stay innovative, but
Yeah.
also to make sure that this sense of home doesn't
Yeah.
escape us?
It's funny. I just got back from my 30th college reunion, and I am officially a grandpa because I just got back from my 30th college reunion. And one of my best friends from college was one of those people because 30 years ago, a big opportunity was to move to Silicon Valley and invent the internet, right, to coin a phrase. And so my friend that was the most that, his name was Jim. Jim recently moved to Summerlin. And I was like, oh my gosh, Jim, like you did all of the things you were supposed. You went to Silicon Valley and crushed it, and you had an apartment in the heart of San Francisco. And he's like, yeah, that's the thing. I have 4 boys, and I had an apartment in San Francisco that everybody was, enamored with. But I had 3 bedrooms, and good luck. They couldn't go out back and play wiffle ball. Now here in Summerlin, we can go play wiffle ball, and if there's not enough room in the backyard, we go 200 feet away to this gorgeous park. And people in San Francisco, I don't think, realize the degree to which you can achieve that here. And so that's what brought my good friend Jim from Silicon Valley, right, to Las Vegas, was what you just described, right? Building and innovating in those parks. I mean, Summerlin's a huge innovation. It's a lot of things, right? It's master plan. It's the biggest master plan. It's also well planned.
Yeah.
Right? It's really well planned and in a way that makes it really easy to get really comfortable.
Yeah, Howard Hughes, that whole team is just magical.
Genius.
I mean,
right?
you drive around, you feel comfortable. The desert scape feels inviting.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you come around a corner and it's a beautiful park.
Yeah.
And not too far away is a shopping center.
Yeah.
But you also can get into a gated community and feel like you're escaped
Yeah.
the hustle and
feel
bustle.
Like, that's a good way to put it. My backyard feels like my escape. And it's hard to do that in urban environments where you're stacked on top of other people. Again, that kind of proximity brings its own benefits. You're more connected in those kinds of places. We were talking earlier before we went on air about proximity and how much proximity matters. There are really good things that happen with proximity, but there also is beauty in the Zen moment where you can walk into your backyard and escape a little bit, right? And that's something that we have a lot of here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, as someone who's lived in apartment living, I could not say more nice things about having just the backyard
Yeah.
space and just being able to have a little oasis
Little
away
Zen
from
garden, right?
yeah.
Like your own little Buddhist escape almost, right? In the backyard in Las Vegas. Yeah.
And I like that that's been kind of the culture. Growing up, it was, you go out and you play. Obviously, a little less of that as adults, but, we find our own
Yeah.
fun.
We build our
But then
playgrounds.
it is nice to go home and sit and, just be
Yeah.
in peace.
Yeah.
And I love that we have that juxtaposition. Like,
That's right. Yeah.
in any given day, if we wanted to, we'd go to work, go to dinner, go to a show, and be at home by 10:30.
That's right.
And
That's
it's
right.
quiet and it's
Yeah.
peaceful. And I love that we have that at our fingertips.
And at 10:30 or even earlier when the sun goes down, even on a day like today, we are like peak summer right now. Once the sun goes down, it's so comfortable outside, right? Like again, going to a place like Boston where the humidity just means you have an insta film of sweat, right? Like you just walk outside and bing, right? Just film of sweat, shiny to the whole world is shiny and sweaty in Boston all summer long. I don't think people always talk about, well, the hard months in Boston are the winter months, and here the hard months are the summer. The summer months are also hard in Boston because you have the Instafilm, and you're never comfortable, and you're never
Never.
dry.
Yeah, that is an uncomfortable. I love a dry heat.
Uncomfortable.
I love a dry heat,
Yeah.
and I don't think East Coast people get it because I
Yeah.
talk about it a lot, and they're like,
Yeah.
"That's not a thing."
Yeah, no, it's painful.
It's a
and heavy
thing.
out.
I
It's
want
really
people
a
to
thing.
know it's a thing, and we're very blessed.
We are
I'll take a
blessed,
dry
yeah.
heat any day.
Me too. Me too.
So you're always on stage because we love to just how much you advocate for us. You're traveling. I know fun economy is definitely your thing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that
Sure.
and how that has really shaped, who we are to the external world?
Yeah, so I did a TED talk on the fun economy. And basically, here's the quick definition. It really is just growing up in Las Vegas and thinking about the things we think about. So I was thinking about tourism, sports, and entertainment, and now how those three are massively intertwining. And it really felt to me like what this is a fun economy. And when we talk about those three easily definable sectors, that's now, we believe, 14% of all of the money spent on all of the earth. In other words, 14% of all the world's GDP is tourism plus sports plus entertainment. Tourism alone is now a 10%, $1 in $10 pesos yen spent on planet Earth is spent by a traveler, and those numbers are only going up because last year China added 35 million people to the middle class who came up from poverty, where you couldn't travel, couldn't go to, I don't know, a Taylor Swift concert. I don't know if you know anything about this phenomenon that is Taylor Swift.
I mean, the queen.
Couldn't go to a ball game, right? Then you join the middle class, and that's one of the first things you start to buy. And 35 million people in China moved up into that middle class last year. 30 million people in India, another 10 million in Indonesia and Vietnam, but also in Kenya, also in Mexico. You're seeing the growth of a global middle class. And the first thing you start to buy are things that Las Vegas sells: tourism, sports, entertainment, and the intertwining of those three in new ways, like the Golden Knights introduced, as we were talking about earlier. So I think that bodes well for the future of Las Vegas, but also Las Vegas as, in the same way that Detroit was sort of the hub of the automobile economy, we're the hub of the fun economy, and we're exporting it increasingly to economies around the world that recognize the potency of this particular moment. This is the first time in human history where 50% of us are middle class or above, according to the Brookings Institute. And that number's only going up, which means potentially, much as we get caught up in the day-to-day crises that are very real to all of us, the macro picture is actually quite positive for Las Vegas in the long term.
Well, and bringing that back to economic development, this is where we understand that 25% of our employment will always come from this fun economy.
Right.
But how do we diversify by bringing the tech side
That's
to
right.
it? The, expanding our healthcare
Yeah.
and, sports medicine. It's very close to elderly care.
That's right.
And we do have an aging population. And so this is kind of one of those things where we can two birds, one stone.
Yeah.
We're solving for this sector that we're growing, but also solving just gaps that we have in our ecosystem. So it's funny how that's been.
Yeah, we're sitting here in a research park, right? And inspired by places like Research Triangle Park in the Carolinas that transformed the Carolinas thanks to the prowess of those universities there. And when we think about doing research in places, if you're fascinated by humanity, you have to be fascinated by Las Vegas. because in 30 minutes you can meet people from 50 countries, you can meet people from 50 states, and you can have conversations with folks by virtue of our tourism economy from all over the world. So if you're fascinated by human behavior, and what business isn't, what a great place to do R&D, right? That's the pitch we've been trying to send out there to the world here at the Tech Park, which is now a robust and flourishing research and technology park. But it's also true of Las Vegas more generally, right?
Yeah.
We are a smart place where you can get smarter by doing R&D in a way that maybe you can only do here.
Well, and yes, this is the research park for UNLV and kind of an epicenter here. But to your point, Las Vegas Boulevard has somebody from every socioeconomic
That's right.
age, gender, every corner of the earth. If you want to talk about a test bed,
Yeah.
where is a better location?
Las Vegas, and the Las Vegas Strip in particular, is the best place on the planet for a fascinated anthropologist. If you're the kind of person who's fascinated by
I love a people
humanity.
watch.
Right. If you love to people watch, this is your town, man. This is a place to do it. Yes.
No, and I really hope that more tech companies kind of hear that message.
Yeah.
Because I do think, never mind the conferences that come here, just like I get to go to 20 conferences a year and I only have to travel for one or two of them.
The world comes here.
Because the world comes here.
Yeah, I think that this is probably, aside from New York City, the only city in the world that all 500 of the Fortune 500 CEOs come to at least once a year. Because probably 300 of them are here for CES alone.
That's
right. Another 50 are probably here for World of Concrete or Magic, the fashion one, right? And so your meetings are here. And then on top of that, of course, a whole bunch of business leaders come here for fun, right? So we really do have to harness that. That's one of those things that I think we can get better at harnessing. You and I talk a lot about that, and you've created events that draw people here to learn about the tech community. We need to do more of that, support more of that.
Yeah, I agree because, I mean, this is what is missing. This rainforest effect that they talk about in a startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, it can be sparked by so many different things. It can be local founders that grow up, exit, and then start all over again. It can start with an enterprise business. I think because of who we are, we don't have a lot of state money. We don't have a lot of university money. We don't have a lot of enterprise businesses that are in this. I think it will be founder driven. And I think a place like UNLV, Startup Vegas, you know, these are things that are sparking, it's sparking people's excitement about being entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I mean, and how exciting, it's one thing to be excited about being an entrepreneur and getting to start something. Here you get to start an entire entrepreneur ecosystem, right? How fun would it be to go back in time to the beginning of the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley startup ecosystem and get to build a whole ecosystem? One of my good friends on campus, David DeJohn, was attracted. He was a brilliant pediatric oncologist and rare diseases specialist in New York City. And he heard they were building a brand new medical school at UNLV. And it's the first one of its kind, right, in a 2 million resident city. And he left because he thought, wow, I can go there because I know how to build things. Now that I've had all this experience in my field, the opportunity to plant a seed and grow a brand new tree out of the soil in Las Vegas is really appealing. I think that's also true now of the entrepreneurial ecosystem that you're a leader of. How fun to get to come to a city that's a huge city, that's a global city, that's a dynamic city, and get to build that ecosystem in a way that you can't do that in Silicon Valley or Austin. They're built already. They've built out that ecosystem. Here you get to build stuff.
And it's cool to find these founders and really elevate them because we are in our infancy. You know, just putting a little spotlight on them,
that's right.
Making introductions, going back to that community, right? Everybody knows each other.
That's right.
So if I'm having a conversation, I can introduce, I was like, oh, you should meet this founder. And the next day it happens. And I think that's so special because you can't do that in Washington, D.C.
That's so true.
You can't do that in other big cities.
It's already been done.
Already been built.
Rules have been written.
That's right.
People will tell you subtly sometimes that you're breaking a rule. You know, that's not the way we do things, right? It doesn't happen a whole lot here because we haven't had time to write the rules, right? And so, the idea of being snooty and protective of a future when, the longest residents have just been here a generation or two, it's just ridiculous, right? Nobody would do that. And so are you like me? I love when smart people move here, and I really want them to like it. And when it fails and they go home because, gosh, we got more culture back in New York City, I always feel a little bit sad. But when they get it and they love it and they start to build here, like David DeJohn, I was just referencing, right, has built this brilliant sort of little sub community within the UNLV Medical School, having learned in New York City, okay, this is how I would build something from scratch. I can't do that in New York because the pediatric, health community is massive and powerful, and there's tons of money behind it. But in Las Vegas, I can totally get to do that, right? And that attracted him here, and he stayed here. And his daughter Ava Rose is best friends with one of my daughters, and in a way that has made them really like it and stay here. Those stories make me so happy.
Yeah, I do think that we could do just slightly better at finding those thought leaders and convening them.
Yeah.
But it's hard because people get into their day-to-day routines, right? Like we are always building something. We're always moving and scaling. And so it's nice that you can do that for yourself, but it is true. That is probably the one.
Yeah, because change is scary, right? Yeah. And uprooting from wherever you have your world and trying to build a new world can be scary. You can't fear tall buildings and live in New York. You can't fear tech and live in Silicon Valley. And if you fear change, maybe Las Vegas isn't for you, right? Maybe you should stay in Topeka. God bless Topeka, right?
Yeah.
Like, we love people in Topeka. But that's probably a better place for you if you're change phobic, right? Because this place is going to change.
We're always going to change.
That we know.
Speaking of, so, we're kind of winding down a little bit, but where in Las Vegas feels the most home for you?
Ooh, I like the Northwest is still like this, that feel like the Las Vegas you and I grew up in, with a little bit more space. It's a little bit more ranch feeling, a little more, a lot more desert. I like those spaces. To me, the sort of Northwest, which is still growing and filling out, has a lot of neat spaces that feel like the Las Vegas I grew up in, and so feel like home. Yeah. That part of the city feels really like the old Las Vegas that I grew up in, with a lot more expanse.
Yeah. I get that. Every time I drive by Western High School, I have a little nostalgia
I'm sure.
Yeah. Meadows Mall,
which looks totally different, right?
Totally different.
Western's got gorgeous new facilities they keep building.
That principal is amazing.
Yeah, they've done a great job.
We're so lucky to have him, and I know, So.
That's right.
Well, Bo, this has just been wonderful. I always enjoy talking to you, and I feel like we really did get at the heart of what home means. And so
I love that you and I get to have this conversation. We've had it a lot over many years, and now we got to do it in front of some new friends.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.